Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction. Join our hosts as they speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Friends in Recovery podcast. I'm Jersey Ed, along with Noontime with Sky, and Tifini P joins us again. And we got some good news. We were able to talk Tifini into coming back on and being a co-host with us. And so this is her first really kind of co-host show. And we want to welcome Tifini to Friends in Recovery podcast. And she is going to be our new co-host. Welcome.
Not new at all to the podcast, but because she's not new at all to the Friends of Recovery, but new to the podcast because she's very much enmeshed in Friends of Recovery.
My grandma always told me I was going to be famous, and here it is. Yes.
Friends in Recovery. And remember, comment below, right, guys? What you think?
Yeah.
Tell us what you think of her. Comment below and let us know what you think. And also all the emails you sent us, help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. Overwhelmingly, 1,000 to 1 wanted Tifini on as a co-host. Just making that up. It's better than
only nice comments below, right?
Yeah, it's only nice comments. That's it. So, couple things, ladies. I feel a little outnumbered here, so I might have to just
the tables have turned.
The
tables have turned,
right? Yay!
I know. This is a far cry from what I used to do, but I'm excited because you know what? All this energy that we have here, everything that all of us know, and hopefully we can get all this content out and all our experience, strength, and hope, to you guys, the listeners and the viewers. That's the most important part. So we brought Tifini on because Tifini works her program inside and out, upside down and backwards. And then she has 7 kids on top of it. I think that includes her husband or not, or her fiance or not. But no, 8 kids. Okay. But anyways.
Lots of perspective and insight.
and Skylar, you guys know Skylar the whole time. And me, I think it's funny. The other day, guys, Stacy was like looking through the YouTube thing and she goes, "Oh, you guys are explicit?" She goes, "It must be because of you." I'm like, "Fuck right. You're fucking A right." There we go, explicit on that, guys. So,
anyway. I was listening to the show and I was like, in the very beginning, I said something like, "What the heck?" And I was like, who the hell says that? Like, I don't ever say heck. So I was like biting my tongue for the first part of the show. And then afterwards I was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the second half of the show went well. And I think this is going to be great. Steph, you're going to be a great addition to this show, a great addition for our listeners. And we're just going to get a lot of good information out there. But real quick, before we get into, we're going to talk about the step 12 today. And we're going to read that. But I want to also congratulate Friends in Recovery podcast on 30,000 downloads, over 150 episodes. And that's because of you guys listeners. Let's double that this year. Let's make it 60,000 this year. And right below in the comments and just, tell us, you're going to listen, you're going to make a commitment, whatever it is, to get those downloads going. And the last show, the downloads were up. I don't know if it was because of you, Tiff, or maybe because I did my hair different. I'm not sure, but the everything was up. So, guys, the reason why we talk about this too is because it gets us out there. It'll get this show even more and more out there. That's when we want to get our message across because we all know that we have an amazing message here. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because it's just a good show. We've been doing,
and that ties into our step 12.
Yeah, exactly.
That's perfect.
Carrying the message to other alcoholics.
Right.
Good job, Ed. That was perfect.
Yeah. Great transition. Woo!
No, but we're not there yet. We need to talk about the website, Friends in Recovery communities.org. That'll be out soon.
Yes.
Facebook and Instagram, Friends in Recovery Adventures and Friends in Recovery Communities. Please like us there. Comment below if if you whatever. I don't know. I just keep saying comment below. That's all. Right? Is that what I say? No. And please like us, wherever you can, and whatever you listen to. So I am not good with the download thing and the comment thing and the like thing. So if you guys know what I'm talking about, comment below and let me know what I'm talking about. All right, that's enough of that. All right, guys.
All right.
So now we're going to talk about step 12. Step 12. I'll read it, guys, and then we're just going to open it up to the room. And I think there's a couple ways that we can do step 12. Step 12 itself, just having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We tried to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all of our affairs. That breaks down to 3 different parts. We can break that down. I got my 12 and 12. I know, Tiff, you have the big book ready to go. My thoughts on having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, that is just something that I feel for myself that happened naturally because of the steps. That the spiritual, there wasn't no skies didn't open up. The wall didn't fall through. Nothing really happened. I think it was more of a calm. It was more of an understanding, or more of just happy to be alive today type feeling than anything. Anything that really was kind of an out there thing. So that spiritual awakening for me was subtle but super strong, super strong, and it really made me see that basically that I need to give this away. I need to talk to other alcoholics and addicts and tell them how I got to step 12, how I got to where I'm at today. And that's where this second part comes in. We try to carry this message to all the other alcoholics. I cannot tell you how many alcoholics in the past that I carried this message to. And I'm not saying that, but I mean, I have a lot of years. So obviously, hopefully I'm doing something right. And that's what happens. But you know what? Carrying the message to somebody else makes me even feel better. Because you know what? Maybe that person will get help. Maybe that person can identify with one thing that I said. Maybe that person will get that one thing I got 27 years ago, and it's called recovery. Maybe that person will get, and if not, that's okay. As long as I do my job and I'm out there practicing these principles in all my affairs, everything I do, from brushing my teeth to talking to my wife, to talking to people at the grocery store, to work, to whatever it is, to my prayers. As long as I do that, I know I'm going to stay sober today. So that's my quick synopsis about step 12. And of course, we'll get into it a little bit deeper. But Skylar, what do you have on that quick synopsis of step 12?
Well, you mentioned the spiritual awakening, and that stuck out to me. Because I think this step is like heavy in the sense that it encompasses all the steps and spiritual principles, really. You know what I mean? Like it really kind of holds everything down, but we've learned it up until this point. It's not like we're just jumping right into it. You know what I mean? So we've built up to this. But the spiritual awakening I thought was cool because you're right. Everyone's is different, I think, but there are some common things that can happen that you can identify with spiritual awakenings, and that's helpful. But I think the main thing is that humility is there for everybody. Because I think in my spiritual awakening, I felt this feeling, and I didn't know it was humility, but I'm just like, this is so weird. I feel so warm and fuzzy, and the weirdest feeling. And then I just think that my faith grew a lot in helping others, and it's trust, because I trusted that I was giving them help the same way someone would help me. So like it helped me, like just like we get self-esteem for esteemable acts, I was getting trust by being trustable. You know what I mean? So like step really like helped a lot, but the spiritual awakening sticks out to me, So
that's a part of it.
Yeah. And Tiff, what about you on the spiritual awakening piece?
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about this today because, I'm glad we are. It's not interesting. I mean, we knew we were going to talk about it. But something happened to me recently, and it was in a meeting, and I just happened to jump on a meeting, and they were reading a step 12 in the 12 and 12. And we got to the point on page 113 where it says, we naturally congratulate ourselves on what later proves to be a far easy and superficial point of view. We temporarily cease to grow because we feel satisfied that there is no need for all of AA's 12 steps for us. And I started thinking, I'm like, where are we going with this, right? What's happening? And then it was like, we are doing fine on a few of them. Maybe we are doing fine on only 2 of them. The first step and the part of the 12th where we carry the message in AA. Slang for this state is known as two-stepping, and it can go on for years. And it's interesting because that really hit me, that two-stepping slang. Mm-hmm. And I found that like, I may be doing this. Like I may be just like practicing step 1 every single day and then only doing part of step 12, right? Where I'm like doing service work and I'm leading some meetings, but the rest of my life, I'm just going on doing whatever the heck I was doing before, other than using and drinking. Mm-hmm. I think I really was two-stepping for a while. So that part of step 12 hit me. Mm-hmm. And then I went on to read and really go in depth into step 12. And that's what you guys are talking about. That's mm-hmm. spiritual awakening. Now I'm the newest person. I'm the newcomer here. You guys have longer term sobriety. So that's why I'm talking about it in this way, because I know that I was just doing part of step 12. And as I started doing all of step 12, like you said, Ed, practicing the principles in all my affairs, like really in my finances in life, in my parenting in life, in my other relationships in life. And all of a sudden, because I really was kind of stuck, I was really stuck in this mode. I could feel it. I started, like you said, Skylar, having this weird feeling of like humility. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it was humility, like you said. And it happened to be my spiritual awakening, mm-hmm. as a result of the steps. And a spiritual awakening can mean so many different things, to so many different people. Probably as many as we have recovered alcoholics could have the meanings of spiritual awakenings, right? Because mm-hmm. they're all different for all of us. Yeah. And so mine, as I practiced the principles in all my affairs, it was gradual. It was of the educational variety, like I had to look back and be like, oh yeah. And that's when I really started, realizing, what my ambition was. That's when I really started to realize who I am in my true self. Who am I? What am I doing here? What's my reason for life? And it's not just to carry the message forward. It's to practice the principles in all of my affairs, just like it says, just as it's written. Yeah. And my whole life has changed. I just, I have a spirit that's different, and it's an internal spirit. And I don't want to give that feeling away. I want to keep that for myself, and I want to watch others as they get theirs. Yeah. There's another piece in here that maybe we should talk about. Where did we find that, you guys? We were talking about.
What about the rest of the 12th step? That
was it 109?
Yeah. 110.
110. Oh yeah, 110. Okay. Guys, if you're reading this out of the 12 and 12, if you got the 12 and 12, grab it, turn to 110, and here, if not, we're gonna read it anyway. So
yeah. Well, can I go ahead and read it? Is that all right? Yeah. It's in the very first paragraph. It's in the middle of the paragraph where it says, to watch the eyes of men and women open with wonder as they move from darkness into light. Do you remember that feeling? I remember that feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To see their lives quickly fill with new purpose and meaning, to see whole families reassembled, to see the alcoholic outcast received back into his community in full citizenship, and above all, to watch these people awaken to the presence of a loving God in their eyes. These things are the substance of what we receive as we carries a message to the next alcoholic.
Mm.
Those words are what I feel. I know that's hard to explain, but that's what I feel in my heart now.
Well, because it's like a flower. Like if you think about it, we were dead, this dead soil that we were at one time, and now this flower is growing out of it, and we're repairing everything. That soil is gotten better, and now these flowers are blooming. That's our families. I remember watching my family come back. I remember people trusting me. I think Skylar, or I think you said at the beginning, trust was trust and faith. And trusting me and getting that awakening, knowing that the person that's all behind this is God, that God is the one that is driving this, because I know I couldn't stay sober, and whatever your higher power is, please don't get put off because we're saying God or whatever, higher power. And that's the one that was behind this, driving this. I can't take credit for my sobriety. I have to give it to my higher power. Do I do the work? Yes, it says it right here, because all this stuff, the full citizenship, and above all, watching people awaken to the presence of the loving God of their lives. So once I believe that I'm getting where I need to be, everything else is that flowers are going to grow, and then that field's going to grow, those trees are going to grow, and life is going to be better than what it was before, and that's kind of what this says. And then the patch next to me, the dead patch next to me, I can take this message to that person, plant a seed over there, and watch that fucking patch grow, huh? I mean, how many patches were we able to watch grow throughout the years we've been doing this, and blossom and turn into an amazing jungle out there, of recovery. So,
Tiff, just to add to it, I looked in the how it works and why the NA, and it says the spiritual awakening, that we all can agree that it's a result from the steps. We may not know what your spiritual awakening mind is, but then it says, you mentioned the darkness, and it's our awakening has been progressive, beginning with a spark of awareness in the first step. Before we admit the truth of our addiction, we knew only the darkness of denial. But when we surrender, acknowledge we couldn't arrest our addiction or hope for a better life on our own, a ray of light broke through the darkness, beginning our spiritual awakening. So it's like progressive. It doesn't have to be like some big thing that happens once, like, and a bush is burning and the house is moving. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, Toto's, whatever. We're going to Kansas, any of that stuff. It doesn't have to be crazy. It can be like first step. Okay, there's a little bit of light, a little bit, like it's, what I mean? Like progressive. It doesn't have to be overnight.
Well, it's like working with sponsees, guys, watching them grow. I mean, it's amazing. Like, from day one, for one particular sponsee I'm thinking of, like their growth is amazing. Like,
can't look down.
Yeah. The problem solving techniques today versus all those months ago. And I was just speaking today, and it's just amazing. It's just watching the growth of them. But also, if we don't practice these principles in all of our affairs, that growth won't happen. It stops, and then you get stuck, and then we fall back into our old ways. So we have to be vigilant and practicing these principles in all of our affairs and surrendering. Skylar, you said it right there. Surrender. My sponsor tells me all the time, surrender to win. Are you out of your mind? You want me to give up? No, you're not giving up. You're really not giving up. If you hear somebody tell you to surrender in this program and you don't understand it, you're going to win if you do it. Believe me. And that's what it's about. When we surrender, all these steps and everything just start working. And I believe that's where that spiritual awakening comes from. When we can honestly surrender and say, okay, I'm going to practice this, everything, all these 12 steps in every part of my life. I think that's totally surrendering. And I think that's when that spiritual awakening happens. And that's when I understand the program, but a little bit better. I'm never going to master it, but I understand it just a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. And like, I'm not the expert either, by the way, just because like I do this big book study on Sunday, right? Comment below. Tell us what is the 12 step.
Yeah, if you guys have
I
like
have no idea.
Yeah, and if you have like a where you found a website or a video where you watch some 12-step info, post it because we want to know. I mean, we don't know everything.
I have no idea. I'm just going off of what the book tells me, and I know that that's the recipe to build the damn cookie, right? Like I want to be the cookie. And it talks about, there's a part in here, and I don't even know where it is on in the 12 and 12. I'm just going to say what I read. It talks about how different people have different meanings of higher power. You know, like when we first start, because this can be overwhelming when we talk about step 12 to a newcomer. You know, to a newcomer, they can be like, what? You know, what are you talking about? Right? What's spiritual awakening and all this stuff all this stuff as a result of these steps. That was overwhelming. But it's where when I first came in, thought of my higher power as the group of drunks, like people talk about the God, the God, that God, right? Where I grew through this program and the steps, and that growth came from where that transformation was that group of drunks into calling that God. Like I have a God now. I have a higher power. It's no longer just the group of drunks that are bigger than me. I actually have a higher power, and I call him God. And it talks about that in here somewhere. And then in the big book, like you brought up the Narcotics Anonymous, it's chapter 7, working with others. You find it on page 89. Where it says right in the beginning, practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. And there's so many different ways to do that, and I think that we've come up with some creative ways to work with other alcoholics because of COVID and things like that, like having these meetings on Zoom, like, that's where I've kind of found my niche, is doing meetings. I like to lead meetings. I like to lead the big book study on Sundays, because on Friends in Recovery, because that helps me grow. Every time I read this book, something different comes to light. And every time somebody shares about their experience with what we've read, I grow. What was that? There it goes.
Here. No dead air.
Well, that's a direct example of the different ways we experience.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I did that. I need to remember.
I do a meeting on Thursday nights at 9:00. Central Time with a different group called Back to Basics. And the reason I joined that group is because they were doing service and working with others, doing a Zoom meeting. That's my niche. But the writing letters to pen friends, being able to do that was a creative way to do service. There's all sorts of different creative ways. You know what, guys, let us know. What do we do?
Yeah.
What do you guys do? For different ways of service, especially during COVID. I know that I do still go to in-person meetings. They're 7 days a week here in my town. So there's different ways to do service at in-person meetings, but not everybody has that advantage of people having meetings right now.
Yeah.
So there's many different ways and opportunities that I don't know about, and I'd like to know about.
Yeah, let us know. Yeah, definitely comment below and let us know. Working with others, guys, that chapter, if you haven't read it, grab it and read it. But you don't even really have, I'm not saying you don't have to read it, but just working with others. I mean, that just says it all right there. Think about it, working with others, because what was freely given to me, right? Freely. I didn't have to pay a dime for it. I mean, I could put money in a basket. There was, it was just handed to me. I call my sponsor. There's no dimes I have to put in a phone. When I reach out to another alcoholic, it's just working with others. And to keep it, we got to give it back. That's the most important part of this whole program. And I know some of us aren't on step 12. We may be different parts in our recovery, but giving it back, you can give back at any time. I think it says, where did I read it? Was it that paragraph, Sky, you and I were agreeing with?
Yeah, and that was on, I think, page 10.
109. No, that
So
wasn't
what-
it. But there was something else that I read in here. It was just saying that, you don't have to be, his own character may still be gravely defected, but somehow, but he knows somehow that God was enabling him to make a mighty beginning, and sense that he stands at the edge of a new mysterious joys and experience of which he had never dreamed. That's the bottom of page 109 to 110. So you
Mhm.
don't really
So
have to.
what book are you reading that from, Ed? That's
12
from
12
12 and
guys,
12?
12 and
Yeah.
12 on 109. And that's a perfect example. Some people may not be hugely into the steps. Some people may not, it's okay. It's okay. Whatever you do to stay sober, it's okay. As long as you do a little bit of whatever. There's people that know these steps inside and out. I have to read the book to understand half these steps, believe it or not, or talk to my sponsor. But this is a perfect a paragraph or sentence saying that, it says his character still may be gravely defective.
Mhm.
Right? I'm 27 years later. I'm still fucking gravely defective. Serious,
That's the
right? I mean, come on. I mean, let's be serious.
Ah.
But I know that the joys and the experiences which I've never dreamed of, because when I was using and abusing, there was no joy in my life. There was no experiences. The only experience I had was when the dope man wouldn't show up, and I would sit there for hours just waiting for him. And we didn't have cell phones back then, but there was no joy in that, no joy whatsoever. So I think that sentence
Ed,
or that
that to me,
right
what you were
there.
just saying pops out unconditional love, which is one of the spiritual principles of step 12. And
Yep.
it's practicing the principle of unconditional love, and 12 and the 12th step is essential. Nobody needs love without conditions more than a suffering addict.
Mhm. That's true.
So, and like that's so true, because it's like the selfless service, the unconditional love, and the compassion are huge in this step, because we have
Yeah.
to be loving of ourselves and others, especially when it's like another addict that won't get clean. Like that
Yeah.
can be frustrating,
Oh, yeah.
and then we have to
Well,
have compassion and love.
The other thing to think about too is this just comes to me, it just comes naturally, right? That this is because I've grown through the steps, and I've followed what my sponsor said, and what my fellowship has taught me, and how to work with others. But first of all, what's interesting is when the book was written, they had to go out and find alcoholics, right? Because everybody they're hiding, there's different things. So they had to work with different professionals and doctors and all these people to find alcoholics. I feel like, I don't know, whatever, there's a number of alcoholics out there. So if I just reach my hand out, I can find one to work with, right? But to be successful with an alcoholic, it says on page 95, never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop, right? That's important.
Yep.
Right? Simply lay out the kit of spiritual. Big book, page 95. But you simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Show him how they worked with you, offer him friendship and fellowship, and tell him if he wants to get well, you will do anything to help. That's really how I feel. Like I'm willing to do anything to get you help, because someone did it for me, and oh man, saved my life. Right. Yeah. But I don't want to talk down to them. I want them to understand. And it's not a moral problem. Like you say, Ed, we're sick people getting well. Right? We're not bad people getting good. Right? Isn't that what you said? We're sick people getting well. And so that's our solution to stay better, and to stay sober. And it's their solution is right in front of us. We just lay out the spiritual toolkit right in front of them as well.
I want to ask you about that also, because and you too, Sky, I'm going to throw this question at both of you guys, because early recovery, or even day one, when when it says don't talk down to people, but when you walk into the door of Alcoholics Anonymous, or you raise your hand for the first time, say I'm an addict alcoholic, I am not at my spiritual peakness, zero at all. Right? I mean, there's no fucking,
welcome. You are not unique.
So let's be serious, okay? That's number one. And number two, you can, like, somebody can just say, hey, welcome or whatever, you're right, we're in the right place. That can even set somebody off. Like, I'm in the right place. What do you mean I'm in the right place? Oh, you fucking drunks here, blah, blah, blah. So we really, really have to be careful when we talk to a newcomer. Hands down, we have to, like Skylar said, greet them with love and compassion, and that's the spiritual principle of this stuff. Like you were saying, is just be there for them, and most of all, I guess, listen to them and direct them and kind of guide them as best as you can. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe you guys were at the peak of your spiritual fitness when you came in, but I wasn't. So.
Like I said last week, I did not come in on a winning streak. I don't care who is going to offer me help. I was like, fuck, okay. Like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. Yeah. And that's the truth, though. I mean, I didn't want to be honest, though. I'm not going to lie. I said AA, I told you guys this before, was not, and none of the 12-step programs were going to be a part of my life. I was just going to get sober, and I was going to go to treatment, and I was going to do all this stuff. Right. But the 12 steps were not a part of my life. And it took me 6 months of dry drunking it to get into the room. So, and 6 tries in the parking lot of the first meeting I kept going to actually walk through the door of an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting.
Yeah.
And but when I walked through that door, and here's what, I was okay. I was trudging through life. I was going, I was making it sober. But something was missing, and it scared me because I did not want to go back to drinking and drugging. I was really scared. So I was actually 6 months sober when I walked through the door. So I had some sobriety under my belt, but I was scared. I walked in there with fear, and I wanted to get rid of that fear. And when I walked through there, everybody was warm and welcoming, but it wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't like they attacked me like a mob, right? It was just like, hey, you can sit over here, whatever, you want some coffee, you want something to drink, it was a big meeting. But I just felt the warmth of everybody else. And when they started the meeting and started sharing, I was like, wow, I'm home. This is it. Right. So that's that feeling that I got in that meeting, where I stopped being scared for a moment. I stopped thinking about my fears. I stopped thinking about, everything in the world. I was focused on a meeting. I wanted to have that continue through my life. And so that's what I want to do to the newcomer when they come in, right? I don't want to be like, I'm going to attack you. And it says that, don't smother people. No. It says that through the 12 and 12. Well,
you got to meet where they're at, guys, because you know what?
Yeah,
exactly.
You're so far this way. They're just at the beginning.
Yes.
You can't explain everything in 5 minutes with them. It's you just got to kind of meet them where they are and just listen. Most of the time with a newcomer, you just got to listen.
Well, and sometimes, Ed, it's somebody who's really at that point of desperation where they actually
listen.
It's life or death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I was just scared, right? That was my experience. So there are different extremes of people, right? And so as a sponsor, I do that to people. That's how I treat people, I'm not going to go through the long version of the 12 steps with someone who's needs to stop picking up a drink today because they might die, or stop shooting up today because they might die. I'm going to treat them a little differently than I do with someone who's got some experience.
Yeah. And Scott,
well, and that goes with we can carry the message, we can share it freely, but we can't force it on anyone. You know what I mean? And that goes into the attraction rather than promotion too, of the tradition side of it. You know what I mean? But what you said made me think of what you talked about that, and it made me think of like a glimpse of hope is what it felt like you were describing, that first glimpse of hope. And I remember I went to a meeting with somebody. It wasn't for me. It was for her. She was in trouble with the law. I went with her. I was 18. And I remember there was thoughts I had growing up. I had suicidal ideations growing up, fourth grade, like stuff like this happened real life. And I remember thinking, if you rolled down my brain and you saw in here that you would commit me to Ancora Mental Hospital in South Jersey, if you're from the area, you know it. And I would be committed there for life, right?
Yeah.
And then I go to this meeting with this girl, and like all you guys were saying everything I thought I'd be committed for.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow, there's someone else that says and feels these crazy thoughts I felt I was so alone with. Yeah. And that is what, so that is a direct example of how a member was able to get through to me with their message.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just such an awesome thing. It just gives me goosebumps.
And I feel like, okay, so when I went into, we're off on a tangent here, but who cares? Right. So when I feel like I went to treatment, I was going to be taught how to just drudge through life, just make it every day sober, make it every day sober. And maybe my life would be a little better, right? Because I'd be saving some money because I wasn't spending it on fucking cocaine and and alcohol and partying. But I would just trudge through life and make it. Right. And then when I got to that Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that I walked into, I knew it was different, right? I knew I wasn't going to be trudging through life anymore, because like you said, Sky, people were saying the same things that I was feeling and had shared some of the same experiences that I was doing. And what a great feeling to have that. But that's where I was. But as a sponsor, carrying the message forward to other people with sponsees, like I said, we're all at different levels. Like you were going to a meeting with a girl that the meeting wasn't for you, right? Like it was for her. I don't have a problem.
And I still left and got high, but it was that first, I did. I was 18. I remember feeling that hope. And maybe someone out there listening, if you can relate to that, please comment, because it does make me feel weird that I did that. But at the same time, I wanted to so bad in that meeting. It felt so real. And then I left and I was like, I can't do it. I can't.
Yeah.
It was real. It was so real,
Well, and I did that for a year. Like when I first went to, I went to detox a year before I got sober. And I told you that I'd come out with like a glimpse of hope because I stayed sober for like 2 weeks. In that detox, there was an AA meeting, a woman who came in and we sat through an AA meeting. And I had a little bit of hope, like you said, but I like you, Sky, went out and was drinking and drugging every single day after that, for a year. I had a couple weeks over. So you weren't alone. Like I didn't walk out, probably because Chris practically had me in handcuffs as he was dragging me out of fucking
he was waiting
like, yay, right? Like
I love
there's some hope. But
so that's carrying this message into all the other alcoholics. That's what we did. And that's what was done to us in our early sobriety. We did get a little off, but we weren't that far off because we were talking about our experiences, that somebody carried that message to us. Because if that message wasn't carried, if it didn't come before us, we couldn't give that message out,
right
now. So thank God that message was carried before, carried to us, and again, like I said earlier, it was freely given to us. Now, what about practicing these principles in all our affairs? I like to say that a lot. I like to understand that a lot. But that's pretty deep if you think about it, practicing these principles in all our affairs. And that could be pretty scary if you think about it. So every principle in this book and every aspect in my life, I have to make them all work together? No, 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 that's not how it goes. But you got to give it your best shot. This program is progress, not perfection, number one. And number two, like Tiff, like you said, and there will be shirts out for this, guys. Just don't be a dick. And that's how you that's how you practice in all your affairs. That's the easiest way to explain it. Don't be a dick. Okay. And then the rest will fall into place. Okay. But it is pretty overwhelming to understand that I have to do, what do you mean day in, day out? How do I practice these principles in all my affairs? Tiff, how do you practice these principles in all your affairs? I know we touched on it before, but how we were just breaking it down. And I like to see how what your thoughts are about that.
Well, I like in the book, the 12 and 12, how it kind of breaks it out into sections. Like it talks about we married folks, you talks about single folks, it talks about how to practice the principles in our financial affairs, but the biggest part, like you said, Ed, is I don't be a dick anymore. And I really do have shirts. I'm going to wear one next week. I have sweatshirts that say, don't be a dick. I've had leggings on the back that say, don't be a dick. and I'll tell you the story behind that. I was in IOP and there was an intern working and she was presenting that day and she lost her presentation materials, except for the one she had in her hand. So she quickly went and made copies. And it was about, and I'll tell you what it was about. But she handed out the copies to us. And when we got to the page where we were learning, it said it was a flow chart. And at the end of the flow chart, it said, don't be a dick in her handwritten. That's what she had handed out to like 20 of us
Nice. I love her
notes, so that's where the phrase don't be a dick came from. It was this flow chart. And the flow chart basically says like, when people come at you, you take a minute, you realize where you're at internally, really being in tune with yourself, and don't be a dick, right? Yeah. When you have problems that you face, like a bill that comes in the mail and you don't have anything, you don't calm down, right? Don't be a dick, take a deep breath. It just talks about taking that pause, that moment of pause. And I practice that in all of my affairs, right? Like I don't be a dick to the mailman. I don't be a dick to the dog. I don't be a dick to the kids. I don't be it's a great phrase. I don't be a dick to the person that cuts me off in traffic.
Yeah.
Right. Those, I know it sounds funny, but it really is practicing the principles in all our affairs.
Very simply too. Very simple.
Yeah. I'm being simple. I'm being humble. Yeah. I'm helping others. Right. Yeah. And I'm explaining to people what don't be a dick means, or like when people cut people off in traffic. We haven't talked about this one yet, but that's called everybody in the world has explosive diarrhea. And that's why you get cut off in traffic. So that's don't be a dick. But practicing these principles, mainly it helps me be a better mom, helps me be a better partner. It helps me to be just better all around person, right? And to carry this message to everybody else. And I don't know, like I really have to thank the one who has all power, and that one is God, right? And that's who it is for me. And I just have to stop, take a deep breath, know I'm not alone, in whatever I do, and make sure I'm living life on life's terms as a responsible individual and human being. And it explains all this in the 12 and 12 in step 12. And I like that it does that. I'm all around a better human.
Yeah.
And it comes from slow little growth, right? Like it's over a long period of time. I develop, still more in every situation. I don't handle every situation perfectly, but I still develop, and I have emotional stability. And that's how I look at step 12 as practicing the principles in all my affairs.
And Sky, what about you as practicing principles in all your affairs? You can't use don't be a dick because
it's definitely a hard question. But when you said it to her, what came to mind is, so I paint and I draw. It's just a hobby of mine. So I think of step 12 as giving me a blank canvas on how I want to carry the message, right? Like I can design this, like, what I mean? And I can build that character I want to be. I can look at some character defects and like, I can do so many things with this blank canvas. And then I can practice meditation and prayer and like hear what my higher power wants, where they want me to paint on the canvas, stuff like that. So it also gives us this option to even like decide how we want to carry it. Like, maybe you want to be a dick. Maybe you want to go to meetings and just, hear the message that way and leave. And then, maybe you want to go to church and hear the message, whatever it may be. But I can decide how Skylar wants to carry the message. I love carrying it with love and compassion, selfless service. They're the things I like to do. But I think that that's where we can all decide, what we want to do with how we carry the message and how we can give service, and give back.
Yeah, but there's the different way we carry the message is that it reflects really on our growth and our recovery, if you think about it.
Yes.
Because if you're that guy listen, I've been to plenty of meetings, and I know plenty of people in the rooms, and there are really some dicks in these rooms that either don't want to be there, and they have some time under their belt too. Yep. And that person does not grow. That person, that those people will not ever achieve what Tiff. I mean, I know you haven't been around a long time, but you have achieved a lot in your short period of time being in recovery, more than some of these people that have 40, 50 years that are really, it's my way or the highway. This is not a program that is one size fits all. There's what's the old saying? There's a wrench for every nut in this room. There's a wrench that fits every nut in this room.
Yeah.
And we have to be, when we look at this, Skylar had a completely different train of thought of what that meant, practicing all these principles of affairs than Tiff, than I did. And hopefully everybody else does. And that's because here's why, guys. And this is what I do when I go to a meeting. And sometimes I fall into it, and sometimes I get myself wrapped up, even in life. I take a little bit from each person that I hear speak. Some people I may not want anything from. Some people I want a little bit of this, I want a little bit of that. I like what that one said. And I build my program. But if I was to walk in and do exactly what my sponsor does, guess what? It ain't going to be a good program. I can't work his program. I can take a piece of what he tells me. I can take a piece of what everybody kind of shares and all that. And then I build me, and same thing goes with life. I can't just mimic people and think I'm going to be that person or whatever, because that's what gets in my brain, like I get to sometimes this crazy thing in my mind that, okay, well, if I do this way, I'll be able to do that, or I'll get this, or I'll have that, or whatever. No. I have to be me. And that's what this program teaches me, is to be me, especially when we get to step 12. Step 12 is open for interpretation, as you just heard, number one. And comment below and let us know what your interpretation of step 12 was. Obviously, there's boundaries and guidelines around it, but it's over here, it's over there, it's over here, it's over there. And once we can put all that together, and once I can understand, all the steps up into step 12, and I can understand step 12 and know what my part is in helping another human, and just helping another human being, just being there for another human being, not even just an addict or alcoholic, just being there for another human being. These steps don't have to apply to just addicts and alcoholics. We can help anybody with all these steps.
Right. I like on page 125 that there's one sentence at the very top, and I'm talking 125 on the 12 and 12. It says, true ambition is the deep desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God. So it doesn't say in there to other alcoholics and addicts. It means all over in all of your affairs, right? Yeah. We're going to live usefully and walk humbly, right? And below that it says, understanding is the key to right principles and attitudes. And right action is the key to good living. Therefore, the joy of good living is the theme of AA's 12th step. The joy of good living.
Nice.
I like that. I just like that.
Well, that's what we want. We want the joy of good living, because before we haven't had that. There was no good living. There was no joy, right? So now you put it together and you have people who love you, people who want to be around you. How many times, my sponsor said it all. He always said, he said that, they were, his family was always happy when he stopped drinking, because if you give Andy a drink, or if you give so-and-so a drink out of the family, they're going to turn into a bunch of crazy maniacs, but not today. We don't have to do that. We don't have to turn into that crazy maniac or not even a crazy maniac, just withdraw from society. This step lets us become part of society also, guys, because we're helping other people. When in you're using, did you ever help anybody? When? Never. I mean,
it benefited me.
But yeah, you're right. That benefited you. That was the only time, I'll take a phone call from an addict or alcoholic. We're doing this podcast, just because we want to share the message, so that's what this program really is about. And if we can't give it away and we can't do this and kind of practice this in everything we do, you better go back to step one and figure out where your life is. If you want to talk about two-stepping, let's go back to step one.
Right. And I'm glad you brought it back to that two-stepping, because, if you're not there, if you don't have it, right, it says right in how it works. Or actually the road to happy destiny and a vision for you on page 164, it says in our book, I'll just read it. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, right? So if your house isn't in order, you can't transmit anything. Like it says, you can't transmit something you haven't got. So you want to see to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. That's, so true right there. If I don't have, I have real life going on over here right now. Mom, Asa, please do not do that. Okay. But it does not, you have to, if you're right, Ed, if you need to go back to step one, you need to go back to step one. If you need to go back to step, that's what the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th step are about, right? That maintenance, that daily maintenance of making sure that, what you're doing is right, because when it is, then you have the ability to help others. And that's where we're at. And I want to stay there. So I'm going to keep that maintenance going. So.
Yeah. And real life over at Tiff's house.
In the future, there won't be real life. I promise. I'll have right now, the office, which is supposed to be the studio, is Santa's workshop. So
Santa's much more important right now. But guys, this is a great breakdown of step 12. We used alcohol, the big book. We talked a lot out of the 12 and 12.
How it works and why of NA and the NA workbook.
Yeah. We did a lot out of that. So if you guys want to kind of let us know in the comments below what your best step 12 is, or your where you get your information from step 12, let us know. Let us know what your breakdown maybe of step 12 is in a quick form. We'd love to hear about that. And I think we covered it all, guys. We could probably go on and on and on, but I think we covered it all. But
I was just going to say, if one of you guys could carry the message and to me and comment below Merry Christmas, I would really appreciate that, because that's the thing about it in here. We identify with each other. So comment below Merry Christmas.
Well, we forgot to talk about this show is for New Year's too, right? Like the New Year's coming.
Or Happy New Year too.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New
Year.
Comment
below.
Yes, comment below. Absolutely.
Comment below. That's our shirts. Don't be a dick. Comment below.
Guys, a couple things before we close. Comment on SoberPod below. Let us know what you really think of them. All right, guys, because they really let us know what they think of us. So no, we love SoberPod. I'm always giving a shout out to them. They're really good to us. They're always talking about us. Carl, Ellen, Steve, Chelsea. Just go look over at, go look up SoberPod, just Google it and they'll come up. They have a lot of good shows. I know Tiff, you listen to it.
It's really a great show. I'm a big fan. So I really like it. That show has helped me a lot. They've helped me a lot. So
they have a lot of good stuff over there. And throughout the years, I really became really good friends with Carl, and he's just got good sobriety, man. You just the other thing about Carl is he's fucking honest, brutally honest about himself too, man. Like he holds no punches back about himself.
Right.
So,
But talk about the 12th step, right? It's not just, it's about service too, right?
Yep.
And he helps us.
Oh yeah.
Right. With our sobriety and with the show and getting everything, I mean,
selfless service.
Good guy, right? And expecting nothing in return. That's
steadfast and selfless service.
Yeah.
Right, real life going on here. So
real life going on. So
I'm just gonna say, God bless ADHD and autism.
That is it, guys. So another good show. Comment below. Let us know what you thought of it. Also let us know, help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. You can send us the email, show topics. If you want to be a guest on the show, just send us an email. And that's all, guys. I think that's all we have for today. Jersey Ed here, and stay sober, everybody.
This concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.